approaching women is it's a funny subject because it's one of the things that most guys think is their biggest stumbling block, because it's usually what generates the most nerves and anxiety with a guy. If you're standing there in whether it's a grocery store, a coffee shop, or you're at a bar or a nightclub, you see a pretty girl or a group of them, and it's like all on you. You've got to start the interaction. But in reality, that's really not that important of an aspect when you look at it, because the approach only takes 1 second. It's you could walk over and say hi, you could say an opener line, you could say anything, but once you've actually approached and gotten past that 2 seconds that it happens, then you're on to the next step. So I like to tell my students that not to put so much worry and anxiety on the approach. There's a lot of ways to do it. But that being said, there's also a lot of ways to kill the anxiety so that you can do it more effectively, because if you aren't approaching women, you're not meeting them, and anything else they learn or study or are good at just kind of gets thrown out the door. Now, one of the ways that I remind myself of this fact that it's not that important in the grand scheme of things is that I remind myself, look, I'm not going over there to ask the girl to marry me. She probably doesn't have a knife. She's not going to stab me if I say something that she doesn't like. And I'm really lighthearted about it. Worst case scenario, I never see her again. An okay scenario is we become friends. A great case scenario is maybe I get laid. And the best case scenario, maybe I find my future wife. And I also remind myself, before I walk over to her and say hello, that she probably has something really crappy somewhere in her life right now, because we all do. And when I approach her in a cool, respectful way, I just might make her forget about what's going on in her life, even just for a second. So I look at myself approaching her as doing her a favor. And, one of my little tricks is that the only goal I have in going in to meet a girl, it's not to get her phone number, it's not to get laid or find a girlfriend. It's actually 2 things. Number 1 is I want to find out if she's cool enough to hang out with me, because I value my time. And number 2, if she is, my only goal is to get her to ask me my name. Because I never go up and introduce myself as, hey, I'm Brad, what's your name? And I'll go into that in just a second of why that's really important. But one of the general rules when approaching a woman is you don't want to overthink it. Right when you see a woman that you are interested in talking to, if the timing is right, you walk over and you open the conversation. And don't necessarily use a pickup line, because women's mouth will come in a mile away. But one way to put her at ease is a very commonly used technique among guys who study this. It's called a false time constraint, and it puts a woman at ease, the fact that you're not going to be a lurcher who's coming in if she's not interested. Walk over and say, like, hi, I've got to get back to my friends in just a second, and then whatever you open with. So that kind of puts them at ease at first, and that's a great thing to do no matter how you approach. Approaching a woman in the day is different than approaching a woman at night, and I'll give you kind of an example. We'll start with the nighttime. So once more, I never offer my name first, and the reason I don't do that is because it doesn't matter. Me giving her my name, it's a social nicety, but it doesn't move the conversation forward in any way. It doesn't offer her any value whatsoever. And I see 99% of men doing this. They don't know what else to do. They walk over, hi, you're cute, or hi, I wanted to meet you, my name's Brad. The problem with that is it takes away a very cool secret weapon, which is the minute you're talking to her for could be 30 seconds, it could be 30 minutes. The minute she says, by the way, what's your name? That means you've sparked a little bit of curiosity in her. And that is somewhat of an indicator of interest, because if she's not interested in you at all, she's probably not going to ask for your name. And that's a great way to know if she's not interested in you. So I walk over, and let's say we're at a nightclub. There's a couple ways that I usually do. I don't really use pickup lines, but I usually don't just say, hey. I want to stand out a little bit, and if there's a go-to line that I've used many, many times, and it's really always worked, I'll walk up. Usually women are in not by themselves, or with 1 or 2 friends or more. And I may just walk up and I use what I call the friendly face opener. And I'll say, like, I live in Texas, so I can get away with saying y'all. But I may walk up, kind of act like I notice them, smile, and say, hey, yeah, I got to get back over here, but y'all got friendly faces. I just had to come over and tell you that. And I say that in a playful, funny way, but the whole friendly faces is somewhat of a pattern interrupt because women don't really know what that means up front. I didn't say you have pretty faces, and I didn't say you look friendly. I said you have friendly faces. It's a very non-threatening way to approach a group of girls, and I'll usually follow it up with, it's a sight for sore eyes in this place. Every other girl's standing around looking like she's making fun of the other girls, what they're wearing, being all bitchy, and I'll play around. I may say, oh, wait a minute, I didn't just walk up with you guys doing that, did you? Did I? Like, you were making fun of other girls. Maybe you're not so friendly. But if I do it in a playful way that it sounds like something I just thought of, it's a lot more natural. And it always works because it causes them to stop for just a second, and they kind of say thank you, even though they don't know what they're saying thank you to. They're like, oh, thanks? Okay. But there's my opening. As I say, it's one of my go-tos that, sometimes I just say, hey, sometimes I say, you got friendly faces. Man, that's a sight for sore eyes. Every other girl is just standing around looking bitchy. I'm glad that all the pretty girls in here aren't like that. So there I just threw another little compliment. And so that usually works really well at night in bars, etc. The other thing that is really effective is if you can make eye contact and smile before you walk over and approach the girl. That's even better because if she returns the eye contact, that's an indication that she's someone interested in you. Depending on the type of bar or nightclub or place that you're at night, that can also make a big difference. If it's a loud dance club, walking over and trying to just strike up a conversation is not as effective. A lot more has to do with your body language. But speaking of body language while you approach, it's very important not to come off too aggressive and come straight in, get too close, and approach her, because that's another thing that can make her feel like, oh, I don't know this guy, he's overstepping his boundary. Another generally accepted and proven strategy to work is when you walk up to the girl, kind of do an open while you're looking over your shoulder at her. So point your body away from her, but point your head towards her and say something, and the minute she gives you a green light and she's kind of cool, then you can turn your body back towards her. Just a simple body language when you're approaching somebody that puts them at ease. That, along with false time constraint, lets them know that, look, I'm not going to be hanging around that long. I just wanted to come over and, say hi. And, when all else fails, if you don't feel like memorizing any openers or routines or anything of that nature, just walk over and say hi. That's really all I got to say. Your turn. Put it back in her court. But those are some of the primary ways that I suggest to my students that they open a girl at night, remembering to keep it lighthearted, that it's not the opening that matters, it's what follows. Now, I will say that there's one secret technique that I've been using for years. I only recently released it to my students. Overcome one of the most nerve-wracking situations when you see a group of girls that you want to approach in let's say a bar, a nightclub, or a night scene, and there's more than two, maybe there's 3, 4, maybe it's a big group of girls, maybe it's a bachelorette party. There's nothing more nerve-wracking than trying to approach and weasel your way into a big group of hot girls. What I did was stumble across a perfect opening, we'll call it a gimmick or routine, by accident one night, and it turned into be the most effective way to approach a group of girls, have them welcome you without being threatening at all. And to make a long story short, I'll take a piece of paper in my back pocket and a piece of notebook paper, and I've just written on there with a black magic marker. I think of a friend of mine's name that says, Lance, wish you were here. And that's it. And I'll put it in my back pocket. I actually did this by accident one night just because a friend of mine was supposed to visit me in Dallas from Boston, and he didn't. He called off the trip at the last minute. So I decided I was going to go out and make him jealous and wish he would have come to visit me. So I did exactly that. I went out and I'd see a group of girls, and I was not thinking about, man, I really need to go in and get a date with one of those girls or go home with one. I said to myself, I really want to get a picture with those girls, holding up this sign that said, His name was Dre. Dre, wish you were here. So I'd walk up, I'd smile, I'd say, you girls are having fun. I've got a really stupid little favor to ask. And I'd kind of bumble around a little bit, kind of like I was laughing at myself, and tell him the exact same story I just told you. A friend of mine was supposed to visit me in Dallas. He was in Boston. He canceled this trip at the last minute for whatever reason. And I thought that you girls represent Dallas really well, and I'd like to show him what he's missing. Will you take a picture holding this sign? And I show him that sign that says, Dre, Lance, whatever the name is, wish you were here. And I've never had a single girl refuse the picture. In fact, I've got hundreds of pictures of women actually holding up these signs, and I've created collages for my friends. I've had girls making out on camera, doing everything because it's a perfectly cool, innocent little story that it's believable, it's non-threatening. I'm not asking them, can I take your picture? There's a reason behind it. And then right when I'm done taking the picture, and I'm not in the picture, they're in the picture, I high-five them. Next thing I say is, hey, if you see any other good-looking girls in here, send them my way, okay? I got to go back to my friends. And I leave. And that right there is such a powerful aphrodisiac for women, because I came in, I was cool, I was fun, I gave them a really cool compliment, and then I took off and I asked them to send me more hot women. I've never gone out and done that and not taken at least 3 to 4 phone numbers home, and that's on the worst night. So that's kind of one of my secret weapons for anybody who really likes to approach groups of women and wants to do it. Very easy, just like I told you. Okay, so we just talked about approaching a woman, and the funniest part is nobody really has trouble, unless you have total social anxiety, approaching strangers. We approach strangers all the time, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's at the coffee shop, or just if you need something, you approach them. And if you're looking for a girlfriend or a date, if you are a 300-pound, overweight, out-of-shape guy who, dresses like crap, you probably don't have that much of a problem going up and approaching another 300-pound woman who's overweight and dresses like crap. Problem is you don't want to. And, we can all get a certain type of girl. We can either lower our standards or, get what we deserve. But I guess it's human nature. We don't want that. We want something better. The 300-pound guy wants the 110-pound, cheerleader-looking girl. Or maybe it's not that extreme, but he wants a girl that makes him feel better about himself. And we all do. And that's why we call it trading up. Otherwise, we just get whatever we can settle for. That's actually a really big fear of guys, is that they're not going to have enough choices with women, that they'll have to settle for whatever they can get. And those are the guys you see who are, married, for several years. Their wife has just beaten the soul out of them and left them like a dead cat on the side of the road. They do whatever they say because these guys didn't have options. They were never able to trade up. Or if they did, they weren't able to hold their own value, and they just did whatever the woman said. So that being said, it's not approaching, it's approaching a girl who is better than what we think we can get. And since we've already said that approaching isn't that big of a deal, it's what you do right after. That's where we're going to go into the transition and building a level of comfort with the woman and getting her to see us as somebody that she potentially want to go out with or sleep with or date or marry or anything like that. So if we look at the first interaction with a woman, after we've approached her, she's kind of given us the green light that, yeah, you can stick around and talk. You're interesting enough. Most guys stop right there, frozen in fear, not knowing what else to say, because when they saw the girl across the room, the only thought that they really have, because guys, we're pretty simple, is, wow, she's really hot. I'd love to see her naked. That's all I got. They don't think of anything else. They don't say, wow, she's really hot. I'd love to go talk about the latest video games with her. I'd love to find out if she follows the Dallas Cowboys. I'd love to find out what she does for a living. We don't care about that. But we know that we're going to have to go through that gauntlet in order to get to the next step. The good news is it's not that hard to go through. One of the secrets is getting really good at the concept of asking open-ended questions and then making statements that kind of require a response. And I'll give you, some kind of examples. So an open-ended or an open-ended question is something that does not require just a yes or a no, and it's not just a real basic question that she expects. Most guys get nervous, they don't know what else to say, so they engage in small talk. They walk up to the girl, hey, how you doing? Thought I'd come over and say hi. So, where are you from? What do you do for a living? You come here often? There's the cliche, what's your sign? Hopefully nobody's really using that anymore, unless you do it as part of some kind of a really funny routine. But they ask the really predictable stuff, and the girl's like, okay, I've heard this a million times before, and this is when looks are really important, because a really good-looking guy can get away with saying anything as long as he doesn't screw it up. But if you don't look like Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise or whoever, you're going to have to display either a little bit more personality or display that you are really curious about something about her. And we gravitate to people who are curious about us because it makes us feel interesting, and it shows that we have value. So when people really start to ask me open-ended questions about, my life, maybe what do I do? So I'll open up to them. Instead of asking a girl, what do you do for a living, which you can ask, maybe follow it up with, is that exactly what you wanted to do when you were a little girl? And, well, no, she'll probably say. Well, let's take a step in my time machine. Let's go back in time. What did you want to do when you were like 13 years old and you had pimples all over your face and you were kind of, gangly legs? Every girl's gone through those ugly stages. What did you really want to do? Was it, was it first female president, something like that? Now, and then, you can add something what you wanted to do too. So you're introducing kind of a cool little conversation that's out of the ordinary. And one of the little, I call it a ninja trick that I did with that exact conversational thread is I took her back, especially if she's really hot, I took her back to the days when she was ugly and gangly. And what that's really good for is getting her in a mindset that I'm not the hottest girl at the bar. I'm not hot shit. You introduce a little bit of the self-consciousness to her, but without doing it. It's almost subliminally, and it takes her off her high horse. And you don't have to insult her to do it. You just take her back in the time machine. And now she remembers exactly what it was like to be, a gangly, awkward teenager. By doing that, you disarm her, and you can talk about fun things. You can talk about childhood. Where'd you grow up? Ask about something that she's not expecting to be asked about. Maybe ask her, really, thought-provoking questions like, hey, what are you really afraid? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of accomplishing? I mean, that's kind of maybe a deep question if you meet a girl at a bar, but it's always good to ask these open-ended, thought-provoking questions. And then oftentimes, if you especially want to be playful, is make statements. And especially make a statement that is so verifiably untrue, but act like you believe it, and it becomes funny and you can gauge a reaction. So a couple times I've used something like this. We've been out with my friends at a bar or a nightclub, and we're standing around, and I'll be talking to a girl, and especially if I've gotten right past the opening, we started to talk a little bit, and I'll just come up with something outrageous. I told this one girl that this club's amazing. It's been around here since the Civil War. And it was like a brand new nightclub. And she looked at me. First, she caught herself almost saying, "Really?" And then she's like, "Wait, what? Wait a minute, that's crazy." I was like, "No, seriously, Lincoln and Robert E. Lee, they ended the war right in this bar." And I'm being completely stupid, but I'm acting like I believe it. And she realizes I'm joking. And she realizes I'm kind of being stupid and I'm being playful. And if you do it the right way, they're never going to look at you like you're stupid or that you're goofy. They're just going to kind of laugh and shake it off. And the minute they do, I kind of smile and say, "Sorry, that was a drunk test," or "That was a gullibility test. I don't like drunk, gullible girls. Congratulations." Now, it's playful. It's kind of fun. You don't have to use that exact line. You can say absolutely anything, but make it so verifiably untrue that you can always come back with, oh, well, that was a gullibility test. So open-ended questions, really big blanket statements, asking her about something in her past or her childhood, taking her back in time, take her forward in time. You know, girls love to talk about vacation. They like to talk about things they love to do. And you can ask them, you know, what's your favorite place to get away? Like if you had one of those really stressful months at work, like I'm not saying I did, but I did. And you need to plan something to just get away and decompress. What is the perfect place that you would go? If, you know, let's just say money's no object. And you get them to dream, and you get them to talk about their favorite vacation. And you don't have to say, great, I'll take you there. You know, probably shouldn't unless you're sporting a private jet and you go whisk her off. And you don't need my advice. But if you can get her talking about things that she likes and fantasizing about things like that, it takes her away from the situation you're in, and it helps her build rapport with you. And then you share some of your favorite things. You know, maybe she talks, oh, my favorite place in the world is Florence, Italy. And maybe you say, hey, I'd love to go there. You know, maybe we can go to an Italian restaurant. We'll pretend it's Florence on our first date. And you just throw it out there. It's just kind of one of those, you know, seeds you plant. Maybe you smile. But these are all ways to build a comfort level with the woman and show her that you're interesting and that you are intriguing and that you are interested in her. You know, one of the things that I'm really known for, and it's been one of my other secret weapons, is the use of, you know, certain types of bar tricks. You can call them magic tricks or whatever, but it's bar tricks, mind reading, mentalism games, things that I just picked up over the years, which allow me to be playful with a girl after I've approached her. I never use a magic trick on a girl that I approach, but it allows me to be playful, especially in those gaps in the conversation where things are not going perfectly smoothly. And we've all been there before. We've asked the general questions. You know, our minds are kind of going blank. We don't know what to do. If I'm standing at a bar, I may go to pull out to buy another drink or to buy a drink for her, and I may do some kind of a cool little effect with the money in my wallet, because I have studied some cool little spontaneous street magic tricks. I like to do it where I don't set it up to where it's a magic trick. And one example, the girl I'm dating right now, I did this after about 10 minutes of us talking. I was with another friend. We met her and her friend, and we're sitting there chatting. Or I was actually standing at a little bar, and the waitress comes up, and we had made a drink order. She came back with our drinks, and she told me that'll be, I forget how much it was, that'll be like $14. And I said, okay, this is a perfect opportunity for me to use kind of a little effect and see what the reaction was. So I pulled out my wallet, and she was bringing it to me and the girl, and I pulled out my wallet, and I pulled out $2. And I looked at that $2, and I was like, whoa, this is all I got. You're going to have to pick this one up, sweetie. And I kind of smiled. And I've only been talking to her for like maybe 20 minutes. And me looking like I'm a broke ass, telling her to pick up a drink before I'd really earned it. I saw that kind of scowl on her face, like, really? You only got $2? And I said, wait a minute. And I could see the waitress was looking a little bit like, ooh, this is embarrassing. I said, wait a minute. And I took those two $1 bills, and I just folded them up like twice. And when I unfolded them, it was a 20. And my hands were clean. It was a perfectly executed little effect. I handed the waitress a 20. I said, keep the change. And then I went on to the next subject immediately. I didn't even let this girl, I didn't bask in this girl's awe, although her jaw was now on the floor. She's like, well, no, wait a minute. What the hell did you just do? That was amazing. Do that again. I said, what are you talking about? I just paid for our drinks. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah, we were talking about your favorite place to go on vacation or whatever. Now, I didn't act like I was too impressed by this. It was just something I did. But it was something that left a lasting impression, and she told all of her friends about it. She actually brought some friends over. She's like, you've got to do that again. I kept on saying, hey, you must have had too much to drink. We're going to cut you off because you're hallucinating. She knew what she saw. And later on, I did another little effect for her, although it was a completely It was a complete mind-reading effect that she still doesn't even know how I did to this day. And she just thought that I was like this really intriguing, creepy, mysterious guy that could do the impossible. And I don't know, maybe it made her wonder if I could do the impossible to her as well, which I later did. And I've been dating her ever since. So these are other ways to incite curiosity in a woman. Call them bar tricks, call them magic tricks, call them secret weapon. Speaking of curiosity, this is really the key to attraction. Guys will tell you it's confidence. Other guys will tell you that it's acting like you don't care. And there's a lot of aspects to social dynamics. But the real key is curiosity, and here is why. In a woman, we see a hot woman, and the only thing we really care about is her looks. Personality will come down the road after we've typically gone on a few dates, had sex with her, everything else, then we'll judge her personality. But if she's good looking, that's all we really need to get us going as guys. But for women, it's totally different. The minute she meets a guy, she starts thinking, okay, I'm curious if this guy's interesting to keep talking to. And I'm curious how this guy would be on a date. And then if you keep on moving forward, her curiosity levels increase. I'm curious how he'd be as a kisser if you start to introduce a sexual vibe. I'm curious how he'd be as a boyfriend. I'm curious how he'd be as a husband. I'm curious how he'd be as a father. I'm curious how he'd be as a provider. And she may not think these things consciously, but subconsciously, it's what moves it forward. And if she's not curious about you, you'll never get to the next step. If she's not curious about how you'll treat her, how much fun she'll have with you. So by making her curious, by being a little mysterious, introducing something she may not be able to explain, let's say like a magic trick, you spark that curiosity. And it's like a snowball, and you can continue to make it roll. And, that's one of the things I liked about magic so much was that it sparks curiosity in everybody. That's the secret to making it work. Everybody wonders, how'd you do that? And so does she. So I worked that into my game with women, and I did it in a natural way so that it wasn't seen as if I was trying to pick women up with magic. It was just something I could do to move the conversation along, to make her curious, and make her tell all of her friends about how cool this guy was and how different he was. Now she can't wait to see what he can do next. But trading up is all about making her curious about you. You can be out of her league on the surface, but if you can get inside her mind, you can get any woman you want. And that's one of the benefits to being a guy. Sucks for women because we're typically just attracted to looks, but for men, women have so many things they're attracted to. If you can't be one, I guarantee you. Okay, so moving out of the friend zone and into her eyes as a potential mate is a big stumbling block for a lot of guys, and it's something that hits home very strong with me because that was exactly my situation when I was developing socially all through high school. I had a lot of friends, but I had a few girlfriends here and there. I ended up dating a girl that I think I was a sophomore or junior, and we dated for like 5 years, all through college. So I spent my entire formative years in college with one girlfriend, which I don't regret because it was a great relationship. But at the same time, we were each other's first. It was a very innocent relationship, etc. But I never really understood what it was like once I was single, right after I graduated college, how to go out there and how to meet girls and get them back to the bedroom. I had this limiting belief that if you let a woman know that you're really interested in sleeping with her too early, it's going to turn her off, and that you'll immediately blow your chances. So I always thought I had to be really stealth, and that I had to go in and be this funny, charming, cool guy that she saw as a great friend, and then somehow by magic or whatever she'd say, okay, let's have sex. Well, I realized soon after a lot of frustrating dates that wasn't the case. Girls loved to hang out with me, and they always described me as, this is what I hated. I had my friend Roger, who was not he was not as good looking. I didn't think, as I am. I'm not like a supermodel guy, anything, but I'm okay looking dude. He wasn't, And girls would describe him as sexy, but they would describe me as cute. And that drove me crazy. I mean, it could have been worse, right? She could have described me as ugly. But why was this guy who was not that physically attractive cute and I was sexy? I mean, vice versa. I was cute and he was sexy. And I realized it was because of my personality. I was this, fun guy they never felt threatened by. They never had to turn down my sexual advances. I actually had one girl that I really liked. She asked me after we'd known each other for a couple of weeks, where she said, when I first met you, I thought you were gay. And that's the worst thing a straight guy can usually hear. It's like, what do you mean you thought I was gay? Why? What did I do? She said, well, you're just really friendly and you never hit on me. Yeah, and I was like, well, you did tell me you kind of had a boyfriend or something, and most guys, probably wouldn't care. They'd still hit on her. I didn't. I was just a nice guy. I'll be friends with you, and maybe someday you'll, want to sleep with me. Well, that didn't happen, and that was a little bit eye-opening. So fast forward, I was stuck in this rut for like 4 years. I've had a lot of girlfriends, but they were just friends, called being in the friend zone. And I met a guy, my buddy Joey, who was the exact opposite of me. The woman never wondered if Joey was interested in having sex with this girl the minute he met her, because he was very forward and in a very funny way, very sexually aggressive. And I'll never forget one night when we went out, had a couple of drinks, so I was feeling socially lubricated, and I met this girl. We were kind of near the dance floor. We were dancing for about 10 minutes. Next thing I know, we kissed. We were both drunk. It was a loud club. And I really didn't know what to do. I was just thinking, okay, yeah, cool, we kissed. Joey comes up behind me and he says, ask her to go home with you. And I was thinking, that is like the most uncomfortable thing I could ever ask a woman I've just met. Do you want to go home with me? I'd never done anything like this. I'd never had a one-night stand. He kept on kicking me in the back of my cab. He said it one more time in my ear. I just looked at her and I said, do you want to go home with me? Like, do you want to go back to my place right now? And she just smiled and said yes. And at that moment, the skies opened up. I had this epiphany that, man, sometimes girls want you to be sexually assertive. I guess assertive is a better word than aggressive. And I realized that you're not going to blow your chances by demonstrating to a woman that you are interested in her for more than just friends. And one of the reasons is because they're used to so many guys coming onto them sexually that they've become desensitized to it, to where it doesn't really offend them unless you really step over the line. And if you don't do that, then there's something wrong with you. But if you do that in a kind of a respectful way, you absolutely have nothing to lose. So back to the primary question of how do you get out of the friend zone. It's great to be in what we call the comfort zone, and you're making a woman feel comfortable with you, and she doesn't feel threatened by you, but she feels like, man, this is a really nice guy. I'm curious about him. Some of the easiest ways to let her know that I'm interested in you more than just being friends is the way you touch her when you're talking to her. If you're making a point, reach out and touch her on the arm and let it linger. Touch her on the hand, touch her on the side of the hip, touch her somewhere as you're talking. And you'll notice if she starts to do it back, that's a great indication of interest. Maybe I'm saying a joke, just grab her gently by the elbow, with my thumb in the crease of her elbow and my hand behind it. And I'm kind of laughing, but I'm touching her because friends don't do that. You only touch people you're typically attracted to. If she's not touching you back, maybe she's not that interested in you. But if this works, it's a great way of using body language to develop that intimate, touch that goes beyond language. Another way to do it is to what we call in neurolinguistic programming is future pace. So at some point during the conversation, you can mention, okay, on our first date, I'm definitely taking you there. And make it just a comment that you threw in there. That way, if there's any question, she heard it. No matter how subtle you tried to make it, she heard it. If there's any question, I'm not here to be your shopping buddy. I'm not here for you to call me up and tell me about the guys that you're dating. I'm not your friend. We're going to go on a date. Another way to do it is to do the exact opposite of that and tell her, look, we would never work out on a date. You seem like a really cool chick, but there's no way we would ever get along as boyfriend, girlfriend because we're too much alike or because you're too fiery. We'd probably get in all these crazy jealous arguments, have a lot of great makeup sex, but I don't know if I can take all the drama. Now, by doing this, you would think that would just completely make you in the friend zone, right? Well, it does the exact opposite. When you pull away from a woman, she chases you, and she's like, well, what do you mean we could never date? And subconsciously, she starts thinking, I'm going to prove you wrong. Yes, we can. Here's a great example also of teasing and bantering with a woman that let her know that, hey, look, I'm kind of the prize here. Like, I'm not that impressed by you, which is a huge turn on for women when you're not that impressed by her and everybody else is. But then also letting her know that there's something sexual going on. I was with two of my friends. We were at a bar, and there was this beautiful, really hot girl. And she knew she was hot. She was with another really hot friend. And my friends had their just jaws open, and they were like, man, this girl is so hot. I think one of them started talking to her. We were all at the bar, and the first thing he starts doing is saying, hey, I'm Jay, what's your name? And then Brian comes up, hi, I'm Brian, what's your name? And if you've listened to anything I've said about approaching, I never offer my name in the beginning. Well, we start all talking in a little group, and my friends are giving her all of this attention, and she's loving it. And at some point, we see her shirt is it's very tight on her. She's got a very tight abs, and somebody says, do you have a six-pack? She lifts it up, and she does. At that point, both my friends were like, oh, my God, that's awesome. That's so great. I looked at her, and I said, that's great, but totally not my type. She's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I like a girl with a little more meat on her bones, one who can take a beating. And I said beaten in a very sexual way, and like with a smirk. I like one who can take a beating, who can take it if I'm rough. And that was being sexually aggressive. And she looked at me. She came up real close, grabbed my collar, and she says, you don't know me very well then. And from that point on, I owned her because I was not real impressed with her. At the same time, I introduced a sexual innuendo or a vibe with her. And even though we were all getting along before that, there was no way that I was going to let this girl just see me as some nice guy that she was talking to. You don't have to be that aggressive or assertive when you're doing this. You can, body language from touching her. Another little secret is to make your eyes triangulate between her left eye, right eye, mouth as she's talking. So instead of just staring right at her, you look at her left eye with both of your eyes. You look at her left eye for about 2 seconds. Slowly move it over to her right eye. Slowly move it down to her mouth. And she's going to pick up on this subconsciously. It's a seductive thing because you're almost just checking her out in this weird little pattern. Even if she doesn't pick up on it, they say consciously, she's going to feel this vibe that you're putting forward. And the best way to make sure that you don't end up in the friend zone is to end the conversation with talking about where you're going to go on a date or where you're going to hang out, or even say something about kissing. Like, it's a good thing I don't believe on, kissing the first night I meet some girl, because you would be in trouble. And I've used that before. It's kind of a very cocky, funny line. Women have never responded poorly to it. I don't use that as an opening line. But, here's one other. This actually goes back to opening lines, but it's a great way to let a woman know that you're interested from the opening line. If I'm feeling very fun and cocky and just confident when I go out, I'm in a good mood, and I see a girl who looks like she's got a good sense of humor, I'll kind of look at her, and I'll kind of tap her on the shoulder or nudge her. I'll say, you're very good looking. I'm very good looking too. We have got a lot in common. We're going to get along. Come on, let's go talk. And I always elicit laughs from that. She's like, okay, who is this dude? But if you're laughing at yourself, it's almost, it's seen as whether it's self-deprecating or it's the exact opposite. She's going to see that this guy is confident. He's into me. He just said I'm good looking. He's obviously not interested in being my shopping buddy. But it's really easy to get out of the friend zone if you make sure that you drop the hints that you don't want to be in it in the first place. It's the guys who are scared of dropping sexual innuendo or letting them know they're interested who end up there. And once you're there, it's a lot harder to get out because women will file you away in friend material. So that is my solution to the friend zone. Well, this is way more important than a lot of guys give it credit for. They're like, oh, well, what's a phone number? Well, women have been known to flake on men. A big newsflash, right? Just the same way that we'll get numbers and never call the girl. It's because we've gotten the number randomly, or we've just been talking to the girl for too long, we didn't establish enough of a connection, and we're like, maybe I won't call her, or whatever. Well, the same thing happens when a girl gives her number to a guy, and there's not a high enough, what I call buying temperature. If you just meet, I see a lot of my students, they'll go out, they'll meet a girl, they'll be talking to her, they've done the approach, or they met her through mutual friends, and they're in this comfortable little zone. They have not introduced any kind of a sexual vibe at all, or demonstrate that they're interested in more than just being friends, or more usually, they have not given her enough reason to be curious about you, or to be intrigued by you, and want to know more. Because remember, that's what drives the relationship forward, which is, tell me, I want to know what this guy's like on a date, right? If you haven't gotten her that way, she's probably going to flake and never call you back, no matter how you asked for her phone number. So the key, number one, is to make sure that her buying temperature is high and she wants to see more of you. The way to do that is at the right time, kind of at the peak of the interaction when you're first meeting her, is at that point get her phone number. At that point is when you want to go for what, you can call it the close, because it's going to be the punctuation. At that point you can leave, and you can leave on a high note versus just sticking around and letting the conversation die out. In show business, they say always leave them wanting more. So during the conversation, there's a lot of ways to do it. I'm going to tell you some of the more standard ways, and I'm going to tell you two of the ways that only my students at Puma Skills are privy to, and it sets us above really everybody else. But the easy ways to do it are as you're talking to a woman and you think it's a good point to get the phone number because you can tell she likes you, she's giving you indications of interest, and you don't want to let it die. I'll say, look, I've got to run. You're doing the takeaway. I've got to run. I would love to hang out with you more, but you're going to have to leave a trail of breadcrumbs to your house if I'm going to pick you up for our date. Now, she's going to look at me, probably smile, and think that's weird. Now, I could have asked for her phone number. I could have said, you're going to have to give me your phone number if we're going to go out. And you can say that. There's nothing wrong with that, especially if there's a good buying temperature. But I like to have a little more fun. Sue me. The reason I say that is because she's not expecting it. You're going to have to leave a trail of breadcrumbs to your door, like Hansel and Gretel, if I'm going to take you out on a date. And she's like, oh, we're going to go out on a date? Well, yeah, if I can find your place. I guess you could give me your phone number. Here, why don't you call this number, pull out your phone, call this number. That way, you can save a loaf of bread. As I say, I make it sometimes more complicated than it has to be. But half the time, I do it for my own entertainment because I get bored just asking a girl, hey, why don't you give me your phone number so we can go hang out? I want her to remember our last interaction. I want her to remember this is the guy who asked her to leave a trail of breadcrumbs, especially because I can bring that up later on when I do go pick her up. I can say, I almost didn't find the house. I parked, but there was no bread anywhere. So it's a good thing I found it. That introduces humor. And all of this just goes to push the conversation forward. You can also tell the girl, look, I'd love to continue this conversation. How do you suggest we get together again? And just let her say, well, you can have my phone number. Really? Great. I'd love to have her either call my number, or I'll send me a text or something, just so that I know that I got a real number, and that way I don't have to worry about fake numbers or worry about calling her once she gets it. Of course, you can always do that, but those are the basic ways. I'm about to get into the more advanced ways, but the basic ways is make sure the buying temperature is hot, make sure you leave them wanting more, that you've given her a reason to want to pick up your phone when you call, because the state she's going to be in, especially if it was a wild night out, she's probably met a lot of guys. She may have given her phone number out to a lot of them. You want to be remembered in some way. Another thing you can do, which is not the advanced strategy, is just say, okay, I'm going to have a code word. We're going to have a code word when I call you. And that code word is, make up some word. Maybe the goofier it is, the better, or maybe a phrase, the eagle has landed, or whatever. That way, when you can text her that, or you can call her that, and you can leave the code word, it stands out and it's memorable. Now, the way that I like to do it, use a couple of stealth effects. I call them, you can call them magic tricks, but they don't seem like a magic trick. She actually never knows that a magic trick was done necessarily, except in one case. The first one I do is called the destiny number close. And the key part about this is it makes women think that really that the universe intervened and you guys are supposed to go out in a fun little playful way. Most women at some point have or do believe in destiny, tarot, astrology, things like that. And I'll first ask a girl, as we're talking, do you ever believe in serendipity or destiny? I don't ask them, do you believe in it? I say, have you ever? You're much more likely to get a yes. And they go, yeah. Or, okay, why? I say, well, I've had a blast talking to you tonight, and I would love to hang out with you again. But I don't know. Something tells me you might be trouble. Let's just find out. Let's see if it's meant to be. And as I'm saying this, imagine I'm in a bar, and you can really only do this if there's, say, like a white bar napkin around. As I'm starting to tell her this, I will grab a bar napkin and a pen from the bartender, from her, and I'm just ripping off a little piece of the napkin. And I'll say, I'll tell you what, here's maybe it's like an inch by a half an inch. It's a little strip. I'll give it to her and I'll say, here, put your phone number on there and wad it up into a ball. She says, oh, okay. I've never had a girl refuse this, by the way. And I'll rip up another little strip and I'll wad it into a ball. So as she's writing down her number and wondering what the hell is going on, I'm just ripping up little napkin balls, real small, and putting them on the table. Maybe, let's say, 5 or 6 of them. Whenever she's done, she rolls up the ball, and I say, great, so there's your number. If we're meant to hang out and be together, then you'll give me the right ball. So let's go ahead and lose it in the pile. So we drop it into the pile of the other 5 or 6 blank balls, and I tell her, you want to pick or do you want me to pick? Why don't you pick? I have her pick a little napkin ball. Who knows if her number's on it or not? Hand it to me. I'll say, whatever her name is, Lisa, whatever. Great meeting you. I really hope we get the chance to hang out again. And I reach over and I either point to my cheek and have her kiss me on the cheek, or I'll reach over and kiss her on the cheek and say, cross your fingers, and then I leave. I walk away. If it's the end of the night and it's time to go home, I'll do that. Otherwise, maybe I go to a bar next door. There's a secret involved. I always will have her number. It's a rigged effect that my students and I know the answer to with the effect of the destiny number close. It's impossible to explain on audio. You have to see it in a video, which I do teach. But what's cool about it is when I call her or when I text her, and I can say, I guess you picked correctly. Congratulations. I can't wait to hang out with you. She's not going to know what happened. Whether she believes it is destiny or not, she's going to still be excited to hang out with you and to go out, especially if you were cool the first time you did it. Now, a little more advanced aspect of that is to go to the next bar, like down the street, or to just go walk outside and send her a text message, 20 minutes later, and say, you picked correctly. I'm outside, come meet me. Now, if her body temperature was hot enough, she'll be really excited and she'll run out there. She'll be like, oh my God, are you serious? How'd that happen? So I don't know, let's get out of here. So now you've got perfect, one night stand material there, if that's what you're going for. But she'll be so excited, she'll think it was so cool, but I make sure I never do the reveal of the fact that I got her phone number right in front of her. I always make sure it's later on. Once more, is that overkill? Did I need to do that? No. Half of it is for my entertainment because I love doing that kind of stuff. And the other half is the fact that it stacks attraction. It stacks these attraction triggers. It keeps her curious because on our first date, she's still going to wonder, how the hell did he do that? So I'm all about putting as much advantage on my side as I can. I don't like to blend into the crowd. Now, there's one other way that I get a phone number, and I call this the Jedi Ninja text message magic trick because it's really so badass that it works every time. And this is this truly is a magic trick or a mentalism effect. And to give you the short version of it, as we're talking, I'll say, want to see something cool? Hey, you've got a phone on you, right? Give me your number. I'm going to send you a text message, but don't look at your phone, okay? Don't look at it yet. I'll let you see it, but don't look at it yet. So I'll pull out my phone. I'll get it ready. I'll say, what's your number? She may be like, okay, well, 214-555, whatever. And she'll give me her number, and I'll send her a text, and I'll say, okay, don't look at it. I'll say, you have a good imagination? She'll say, yeah. I'll say, good, you're going to need it. We're going to do a magic trick. It's the only time I ever set up something where I'm going to do a magic trick. And I'll say, the imagination is going to come in because we've got an invisible deck of cards. I don't bring a deck of cards out, but we're going to imagine I do. And I'm going to go through the cards, like pick one, and I go through this process by which she arrives at one card out of the entire 52 decks. Let's call it the 3 of diamonds. And it can be any card that you choose. But it's all mental. It's all done with words. There's no actual prop. And at the end of the trick, when she says, okay, 3 of diamonds, I'll say, that's amazing. Out of the entire 52 deck of cards, you picked the 3 of diamonds. I may need to get a drink for that one. Hey, why don't you check your, pull out your cell phone real quick. That's all I say. She'll go, okay, and she'll pull it out. And now she might be figuring out what's going on, and she's going to turn it on, and it's going to say, it's going to be from a number she doesn't know, because it's me, it'll say 3 of diamonds. And I've gotten girls scream, say, what the hell is going on? But my favorite is when they go stone cold silent. They don't know what to do because you completely hacked into her head, and she is looking at you like you're either the devil or the hottest guy she's ever met, because how the hell did you do that? The coolest part about that is you gotten her phone number, right? But the next day, when you text her, hey, Susie, hey, whatever your name is, hey, Shelly, great to meet you last night. When are we hanging out again? And that text message will come up directly underneath the words 3 of diamonds. So it instantly takes her back to that moment where you just blew her away and you were that cool mofo who did that really neat little trick and you got her number. Works every single time. It shows that you're cool, you can do magic, it's not cheesy, it's a lot of fun, and you get her number. That is the Jedi Ninja text message magic trick. And once more, I love the advanced stuff because I like to go into our first date with an advantage. And that's how I cure the phone number quandary. Okay, so the question number one being, where do I meet girls that I'm interested in? And then we'll get into where to take girls once you found them. This is a tricky question because it all depends on the type of guy you are, where you are in your life, your lifestyle, and what you want. Let's start with what you want. Most guys want, they just want a girl. They haven't even thought about it. Like, man, I just want a hot girl to be my girlfriend or have sex with me or whatever. They haven't put any thought into the type of qualities they want in a woman. And when you don't know what you want, you're going to just get a whole bunch of other stuff because you don't know where to go find them. So for instance, I'm not going to go, if I'm looking for a really, moral, religious, good girl, like wife material, I'm not going to go try to find her at a dance club or a rave filled with a bunch of kids on ecstasy, right? So you have to know what you want. And a lot of guys are just like, I'll settle for anything I can get. Well, you're making it a lot harder. It doesn't take a lot of time to sit down and really think, what qualities do I really want out of a woman? And what do I want out of a relationship? Do I just want to bang as many girls as I can right now, and I don't really ever care about a relationship? I just want to be a big stud? Or you're like, I don't really need that. That's kind of empty. I want to find the kind of girl that will be, a great girlfriend, potential wife, potential mother. Or do you want a little bit of both? A lot of guys, I think, we want to have options. We want to be going out, having fun, dating a lot of girls, maybe sleeping with as many girls as we can until we find that one who makes us want to settle down, kind of the best of both worlds. But you need to know what you want and what you want right now. And then when you write down those qualities, what's she like? What's her personality like? What's she like to do for fun? If she is in a relationship, where would she want to hang out? By just doing this, you'll open up so many ideas for yourself. But let's try to cover the spectrum. Obviously, bars and nightclubs are where most people go, especially when you're younger, to go hang out and to socialize. You work all day. When you're younger, you got a lot of energy to get out on the town and go be social. It's great because there's plenty of girls around, but the bad part is they've all got their shields up. The good-looking girls will put on these bitch shields because they have to, repel a lot of guys who are after the same thing you are. The good news is there's a lot of them there. So if you are, if you dress well, if you take care of yourself, if you're intriguing and you pay attention to the stuff that I talk about, you're going to come out way ahead of every other guy there. So you're going to have an advantage. Not all girls at bars are bar sluts or, I met the girl that I've been dating for quite a while, and she's a fantastic girl. I met her at a bar. It wasn't a big nightclub, but it was a little loungy type bar, and I just kind of bumped into her. So you absolutely can meet really quality girls when you're out at night. The most important thing, though, is that you find one or two wingmen or guys, or even better is if you have a couple of attractive women that are just friends that you go out with, that will allow you to seem like you have a little bit higher status. Women just are attracted to men who are hanging out with other women because it shows that other women would hang out with you. It's kind of like a source of validation. But that being said, you want to focus not on going to the club or the bar and being a pickup robot. You want to be the kind of guy who goes there to have fun, to socialize, to make connections, to blow off some steam. And when you give off this vibe, it will show. Women will pick up on it, and they won't see you as, look, I'm there with, my hunter clothes on. Because women know when you're out there hunting. And a lot of married guys will tell you, it was really weird. The first time I put on that wedding ring and I went out with my buddies on a, guys' night out, I got hit on by a lot of girls. And it's because women can tell that they're not needy. And they'll flock to that because women hate a needy guy who's out there hunting for ass. The key to that, though, as I said, is to have fun, know what you're going in for, know the type of girl you're wanting to meet, and walk over when you see her and meet her. But maybe that's not totally your style, the whole bar scene, the whole nightclub scene. I personally didn't like big fancy nightclubs because I like to be able to talk to a girl. So I would hang around more bars or lounge-like places. Some other places, especially as you get older. Yeah, we'll stick with the night right now. Wine bars. I love wine bars and sushi restaurants. There's a friend of mine who had this theory, and every time we went out, like it was a Saturday night, he and I and my other friend, before we go out for a night on the town to meet some girls, he would say 3 letters, BLS. And the first time he said BLS, like, where are we going tonight, Neil? He said, BLS. What's that? He says, bitches love sushi. And I use the term bitches in a very funny way, but it's true. You will see more women going, before they go out to a nightclub or whatever, going to eat first at a sushi restaurant because it's light food, it doesn't make them feel full, and they'll get together and they'll talk girly stuff before they go out. If you're there too with a couple of friends, it's actually not that hard to walk over, ask what they recommend, is it any good, make the conversation. Their shields are down, and I've seen more hot girls going out for sushi prior to anything else, except, actually, sushi may be number one. Number two is a wine bar. Now, wine bars are great, especially if you're a little bit older, because you're not going to attract as many like 22-year-old girls at a wine bar, but it's a little more sophisticated. You can actually go in by yourself if you want. So if you're out solo, you don't have any friends, go to a wine bar. Be careful if it's just you and one other guy hanging out at a wine bar sitting too close. They may think you're off the market. But wine bars are great because women will go there. They're very relaxed. Maybe it's prior to a bigger night out, or maybe it's their only night out, and they're wanting some, conversation. They want to feel sophisticated. And it's very easy to approach women at a wine bar, especially if you look like you need a little bit of help. Women love to help people. It's in their nurturing nature. Sometimes I have admittedly drummed up some fake scenarios to ask for their help. Like, there were these two girls at this one wine bar. This was a couple of years ago. And they were both up at the bar area. And I walked up there. I had a friend, a buddy of mine, was sitting on the couch across the room. I walked up there, and I was asking for the wine list, and I'm looking around, and I looked at these two girls, and they were both gorgeous. And I asked them, I said, girls, I've got a crazy question. You look like a couple of wine snobs, and I say that in a very complimentary way. I've got a really, I've got a great date with an awesome girl I just met. And she likes wine. I love wine, but, I can't really tell what's good or bad. You girls look like you know what you're talking about. Can you help me out? Okay, what do you think, what would you like if I was taking you on a date? And they'll start to ask, well, what are your plans? What are you going to do? And you're telling them about all these cool things you're going to be doing with this fictional girl. Now, before I go any further, let me reverse this. If I was talking to a girl and a girl asked me this, as a guy, my natural inclination is to say, okay, this girl's taken, and I'm not personally going to try for anything. I've noticed it's really weird, though, when you're talking to women, they'll flip around and they'll be really interested in you because, number one, you just told her it's a first date, so it's not serious, right? Women are very competitive, and if you show that you're a cool guy who is putting thought into this date, and you're not coming on to her, she's going to think, man, I really wish this guy would take me out on a date. And it's really easy to transition out of this and to show your interest in them. And as you're talking to them, you girls are really helpful. Man, this is so cool. I should just buy this bottle of wine and the three of us should get together, or the two of us should get together. But I can't blow her off, but I really actually like you. I would love to take you out sometime. Once more, if it was the opposite, I probably wouldn't be too flattered if this girl was doing that to me. But women respond to this because you're a guy who's in demand, who other women will go out with, and you can let them know that, look, I date multiple women. Women don't usually have a problem with that unless they really, really like you, and you can let them know that you'll show them a good time. I've actually done something similar like that at wine bars numerous times, and it's a great way to meet a little bit more sophisticated woman. You don't even have to go to the length of telling them you have a date with another woman, but that's just one idea of something you can do. But either way, walk up to them and just ask them, what are you girls like? I am not, I'm trying to be a wine snob. I'm trying to do what I can, but I just, I know good wine and bad wine. Why don't you girls give me a lesson? And even if you don't know what you're talking about, make it up, because I won't know the difference. So you're being playful with them. Love wine bars. During the day, It's a little bit harder because there's no single place that women are going to flock. I mean, you can say the grocery store, but you don't really want to hang out at the grocery store the whole time. You can say a coffee shop. Love bookstores because I like smart girls, and if I go there on a Saturday or Sunday and I just walk around, I can spend hours at a bookstore and read. And if I see a girl walking in, it's very easy to walk up to her and comment on the book she's reading or make conversation. Terrific places. And honestly, some guys have never done it. Some guys love it. I used to love it. I haven't done this in a while, but online dating. It's, the technology is there. It's not a taboo anymore. And meeting girls online, you can describe exactly what you want, what you're looking for. You can put yourself out there. Rejection doesn't hurt nearly as bad at all when you're online. And it's just one more tool to meet women. I've got several of my buddies have met the love of their life. They got married using, online dating. I've probably met 15 or 20 women online. I may have only had 2 dates that weren't really that good, and every other one was, fantastic. So if you haven't done any online dating, don't be scared of it. But that's where you can meet women. And obviously there's a lot of different situations that fall into different demographics depending on how old you are and what you're into, but hopefully those help. Now, I've got one place that when I go on a first date, that I love to take women, works almost all the time. I'd say I take 80% of my first dates there when I can. If you live in a big enough city, it's really easy to do. It's a comedy club. And I do this for a reason, because number one, people don't go to a lot of comedy clubs all the time, so it's not like dinner and a movie. It's not just a bar. By the way, I don't do this on girls. I just meet a girl and I'm like, okay, she's cute but annoying. I just want to get in her pants and move on. If I just want to be that guy, I'll just meet her at a bar, take her to a bar and get her drunk. But if I kind of like this girl, we're going to go to a comedy club. Maybe we'll do dinner before. Sometimes the comedy clubs have dinner there. But we'll do a real casual dinner, nothing fancy, and we'll go to the comedy show. And you can do one of those ad-libs like improvisational comedy, or you can go to a real stand-up comedian. What's cool about this is it's the best of both worlds. You don't have to be sitting there talking to her all night long and worry about the conversation if you're nervous, but it's also not as impersonal as just sitting in a movie because you get to see what her sense of humor is like, you get to laugh. And when you leave, if it was a good comedy show, her mental state is going to be very fun. She's been laughing. She's been having a good time. Immediately after that, you can go have a drink somewhere. And most guys don't think to take her to a comedy club. They think of something that every girl's done. They take them out to dinner. By the way, the worst thing you can do on a first date is take a girl to a fancy dinner, period, because that shows that you're trying to impress her. But you don't want to come off as you're trying to impress the girl too much unless you get to know her, because you're giving her validation that she doesn't deserve. See yourself as the prize. So take her somewhere that's kind of cool. Maybe it's a lounge. Maybe it's somewhere you can just sit there and talk. If you guys met and you had a great conversation before, take her to a little loungy place. You don't have to take her for dinner. Maybe a little lounge that serves tapas. A tapas, T-A-P-A-S, not topless, bar is another really good one because it's a light dinner. You can sit around and chat, and you're not going to go wrong. So that's kind of safe. The comedy club is surefire. Even if it's a bad comic, you guys can sit there and disagree, talk about how bad the comic was. But that's what I love to do. On date number 2, you can go to a little bit nicer dinner, or a movie, or something else. Date number 2 doesn't really matter so much, but it does because then you want to get to the all-important date number 3, and this isn't a rule set in stone, but I found it to be very consistent that on date number 3, if date number 1 and 2 go well, and you're at least in your say late 20s or above, date number 3, the panties usually come off if you do it right. And that's because it takes a lot for a woman to give you a second date. If the first one was bad, she's not going to give you a second one. The second one was pretty good, and she gives you a third one. That means this girl really pretty much likes you. And it's your job now just not to screw up. On the third date, I always bring her to my house. I get it all nice and clean, and I cook her a great meal. You don't have to know a lot of meals. You only need to know 1 or 2 meals to show her you can cook. grab a bottle of wine, sit there, talk, make meals, and you get to make something else. So those are my best suggestions for where to meet women and where to take them for the majority of guys that I... Okay, so seduction starts the moment the interaction begins. You want to approach every woman without worrying about having sex with them, but with the intention that, I'm not coming up looking for a friend. I'm coming up if I'm talking to you, it's because I find you attractive. There's a couple ways you can do this in the very beginning to start off the sexual vibe. And this is even before you drop sexual innuendos, which are great, which let them know very consciously that there's sexual tension in the air. But sexual tension is what makes a woman want to, take the next step forward. And tension comes from knowing that there's that element in the room, or the elephant in the room, but you're not addressing it completely. And she doesn't know if it's going to happen, but she knows it might. One of the first things that you can do, and I've spoken about this before, is your body language. When you talk, you want to be very standing rooted and confident. You want to touch her while you're talking. It's commonly referred to as kino, K-I-N-O, for the kinesthetic touch. It's also important when you're looking in her eyes. Maybe move down to her lips and back up to her eyes, maybe in a triangular shape. The other thing you can do when you're talking to a woman is slow down the pace of your speech and maybe reduce the volume of it a little bit. And you're causing her to hang on these pregnant pauses, they call them. And you may need to do a little bit of practice with them. But you can notice that when you expect me to say something like I just did, your mind wants to follow along. It wants to make me say it. So you're going to be paying much closer attention. And there's a seductive quality about guys who speak slowly and softly, because when you do that, it makes them listen more intently. And it also gives her a prelude to the whole idea of bedroom talk or pillow talk, where you're going to be much more sensual in your words, and you're picking your words much closer. It's a very seductive little trick you can do. One of the other things you can do, and I have to say that I didn't come up with this. I owe this to my good friend and another master of seduction named Nick Quick. That's his actual real name. And Nick teaches guys how to really just get laid the same night they meet a girl. He's not there to teach you how to get a girlfriend. And years ago when I first met Nick, he told me this piece of advice, and it was something that I did subconsciously, but I didn't know I was doing it. And once I realized, how it works and the structure of it, I started doing it more, and my success went through the roof. So the key is this. When you're talking to a girl about mundane, everyday stuff, hey, what do you do for a living? Where do you live? Who do you come here with, etc. I'm picturing in my mind her wearing nothing but maybe a little sexy garter belt, bent over my couch as I'm spanking her and we're doing dirty, dirty sex. Now, I'm not saying it. I'm thinking it. I'm thinking as dirty as I can with a smile on my face. Now, your eyes are a window to the soul, so the only place this is going to come off is in the vibe that you're giving off. It'll change the way you speak. It'll change the way you stand. When you're talking about grocery shopping and you're imagining her in, wearing nothing, laying on your bed, it's going to be different. Now, the exact opposite is if you drop sexual innuendos, which you should, you want to put in your mind as you're saying this sexual innuendo that you're grocery shopping. You may as well say something like, I want to take you, you could say, I want to take you home and spank you, but you say it as if you said, I'd love to take you to the petting zoo. What you think about when you say these words will change the vibe that you give the woman. And if you try it a couple times, you'll notice its effect, because it'll all be in your body language. It'll all be in this kind of energy and vibe you give off. And it's amazing the results that you get from it. And it's also what explains how some guys can say the most outrageously sexually assertive or aggressive things with a smile on their face, and the girl laughs it off. Where other guys, if they thought, man, if I tried to say that, I'd get slapped. Not if you do it using this, depending on what you say. I'll try to give you an example. So one of the things that I've said to a girl, I've taken the exact opposite approach of most guys. I haven't done this with every girl, but if the conversation's going really, really well, and there is sexual tension already there, so I've already introduced it a little bit, and she's got a decent sense of humor. I've looked at girls, I've smiled, and I've just said, I'm going to take you home and fuck the living shit out of you tonight, and I'll laugh. Or I'll maybe not laugh, but I'll just say it it'll be one of the most offensive things I could say, but I'll say it so lighthearted. And if it's done with the right girl at the right time, she'll say, do you promise? You can get away with this if inside you're not being creepy and perverted about it. You can ask girls what their favorite sexual positions are if you do it in a way that is playful. Women once more expect this. Now, this is very dangerous for beginners to do in the very beginning because they really haven't mastered their internal states that much. But I want to let you know that you can do it if you follow that technique. Think about grocery shopping with grandma while you say something really dirty and filthy, and it won't come off really and dirty and filthy. Although that combination of grocery shopping with grandma and saying something filthy just kind of creeped me out as I said it. The other thing you can do to introduce a very, very sexual vibe, and this is one that I used to call it the line I don't talk about. I only talked about this with a few of my friends because I didn't want every guy doing it. At some point when the conversation's going really well, you can say these words, and I got it down to where I said them verbatim. In a playful way, or serious, say, look, no matter what happens tonight, we're not having sex. I started off this line for one reason, and I'll tell you the result. One of my friends was a virgin until a good-looking guy, was a virgin until he was like 26, 27 years old for religious reasons, and he always told me that when he was with girls, he'd be making out, they'd start getting hot and heavy, and the girl would start to pull away and like, oh, we need to slow down. He'll say, oh, no. Don't worry, no matter what happens, we're not having sex. And he said at that moment, it was the weirdest thing. They turned into these tiger women who were like, well, wait, why? How come? It's like it was the craziest thing, and he really wouldn't have sex with them. And that was driving me crazy that I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try that. So I started doing it when I brought a girl home, and maybe it was on a date or something else, and it was a little nervous. Like I didn't know how to introduce the, hey, let's go make out or have sex. I just tried it saying, look, we're having fun, but this is getting a little heated. No matter what happens, we're not having sex tonight. And I experienced the exact same result. It's the ultimate takeaway that no guy usually has the balls to say, and it short-circuits these little wires in their head because they're like, well, yeah, I know we're not having sex, and they'll look at you, that's what they'll say, but they're really confused as to why you just said it. And you've just brought up the topic of sex, and you've just told her it's the thing she can't have. And if there's one thing we know about human nature, we want what we can't have. We pursue that which runs from us. And it got to the point to where me and my closest friends were saying it as a game because it was so powerful. We wanted to see how early in the conversation we could say it and still have it work. And I think one of my close friends had the record, which it was like 5 minutes into the conversation. He says, I'm having so much fun with you tonight, and it's late, but no matter what happens, we're not having sex. So there he's introducing a sexual vibe. He's making sure that she knows she can't get it. And he said he almost had to call the cops on her. He's joking because she was so aggressive with him, saying, like, oh, yes, we are. Now, that's something any guy can do because it can't bite you in the butt. The worst thing that can happen is she goes, you're right, we aren't going to have sex. And I'm like, okay, you walk away smelling like roses. But the next time you see her, it's still going to be on the back of her mind going, well, why did he say that? And why did he not care? And I guarantee she's going to try to have sex with you. So these are some, I could give you the much more subtle ways to do it. But in general, body language, sexual innuendo, jokes. When you're making a sexual joke, think of something very innocent. When you're saying something very innocent, think of something sexual. The vibe will confuse her just enough to where she'll keep you out of the friend zone and make her want to sleep with you. You can be really assertive when you say certain words as long as your frame is right. But the go-to secret weapon is really just to say, look, this is fun, but no matter what, we got to slow down or whatever you want to say. No matter what happens, we're not having sex. And I guarantee you, you'll be having sex before you know. Okay. So body language is really important to introduce a sexual vibe. And one of the most important things is to be strong and what I call rooted in the ground. If you are standing there kind of like on one foot, leaning back, the other thing's propped up on something, and it looks like you're propping yourself up in an awkward way, women will see that. Women are very responsive and attracted to powerful men. So think about yourself, like how would a powerful man stand? If you were James Bond, if you were, whoever else, think of the sexiest, most seductive movie star that you can. If you're a little older, maybe George Clooney or, Brad Pitt or, as I said, James Bond, just a general character. How would he stand? Well, watch one of the movies. He's probably very rooted, maybe one hand in his pocket, maybe another one just resting up against the bar, but it's almost as if he's holding the bar up versus the bar is holding him up. And you're not wavering too much, you're not antsy, you're not bouncing around, because strong, assertive, confident men don't do that. Women will pick up on this. So even if you don't feel that way inside, just pretend you're James Bond for a minute, stand there, and be really, really cool. Eye contact is very important, especially if it's uncomfortable to stare directly in her eyes. I've mentioned to rotate between her eyes and her lips. And another great little tip you have to be a little careful with is that you can look at anybody in the eyes for as long as you want without ever being uncomfortable. All you have to do is stare at the bridge of their nose. So right in between your eyes, pick that one little point, focus right there. You're almost looking through them. Your focus is not looking in her eyes, so it doesn't make you want to gaze off. One of the problems, though, is you have to make yourself gaze off. Otherwise, you look like you're just staring directly in her eyes for too long, and that's not really natural. But eye contact, looking at her lips, every once in a while, let her catch you checking her whole body out, but not in a licking your lips kind of way, but just in an admirable way. Maybe you do a quick little peek head to toe with a little smirk or a smile. It'll give off a sexual vibe. Another piece of body language you can do, this when you go to meet a girl, maybe you shake her hand, maybe you give her a quick little high five. This is much more for if you're in a bar or a nightclub environment. Shake her hand, give her a quick little high five, hold her hand there for a second, and give her a little spin, like a little dance spin. Throws her off, makes her have fun, makes her feel like she's dancing just a little bit, and it shows that you're there to, bring the fun. You're not just shaking her hand. Or when you are shaking her hand, let it linger there. Let her be the one to pull the hand away. Don't hold on to it if she does try to pull it away, but don't shake her hand and then let go as quickly as possible. Think to yourself, what would a sex symbol in the movies do, a male sex symbol, and be that guy. If you have to watch movies, it's a great way to do it. And the interesting thing is, your body typically, your mind and your body are so connected that your body follows what your mind tells it to do, but at the same time, your mind will follow what the body tells it to do. A good example is if you are in a bad mood about something, force yourself to smile. You may not feel like smiling. It may be the worst thing in the world, but just hold a smile till your cheeks hurt. You'll notice something in your physiology, in your emotions, that it will dull whatever pain you're going through, even if it's just a little bit. But it's the easiest way to see that if you force your body into a certain position, your mind can't help but follow because they're so unique. If you force your body to have strong body language, rooted, and in the way that your favorite movie star would, you'll find you'll start to take on that persona inside, and it'll get a lot easier. So that's my main advice on body language and introducing sexuality through it.